I don't normally dip my toe into political stuff. One, because my sincerely held political beliefs are illegal to express out loud in every country, I'm pretty sure. And two, because it pollutes your brand and makes sponsorships and whatnot harder to come by. I feel like I kind of have to talk about this censorship situation that Visa and Mastercard are creating, though. Especially since Fear and Hunger is one of the couple thousand games already targeted, and that's most of my content, and this kind of represents an existential financial threat to my well-being. I'm a little late to the party, but for all two of you that haven't heard about this and clicked this video anyway, some feminist group called Collective Shout was taking credit for essentially handing over more power to the two-part payment processor monopoly. With a mere 1,000 phone calls, they successfully gave the companies the excuse they needed to do the thing they already wanted to do. Normalize debanking individuals and companies that do not comply with what they want. Specifically, under threat of being barred from using Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal, they forced Steam and itch.io to remove several games that dealt with unpopular themes involving bad things. Fear and Hunger is now shadow banned on itch.io, and a bunch of others were silently removed from people's libraries without a refund. If you're a real brainlet, you might think to yourself, oh, well, if they're removing games with the things I don't like, then they must be doing a good thing and we should cheer. They are the good guys. And if you sincerely think that, I have to ask, if these soulless megacorporations are interested in doing the right thing and this isn't a calculated power grab, how do you reconcile that with them never, for instance, debanking Epstein? His child trafficking activities have been known for 20 years. His first conviction was in 2008, where he spent a whopping 3.5 months in prison. This is publicly available information. If these companies actually cared about protecting children, they could have intervened. They chose to continue doing business with Epstein for over a decade and decided that banning fictional content was more important than actual children. Of course, both the companies and Collective Shout actually seem to be kind of on board with that kind of stuff, but only when it affects real people. As you can see from their tweets celebrating cuties, a movie that was literally found to be, quote, lewd visual material depicting a child in multiple jurisdictions, which exploited over 650 actual children, and the distribution of which led to criminal indictments. I've only got a couple of tweets on hand about it, but allegedly they've made dozens gushing about this to the point it's actually kind of concerning how often they talk about it, and you have to wonder if there isn't some kind of ulterior motivation for it. They could be going after things like Game of Thrones, which checks all of their criteria about incest and sexual assaults, but they don't. That's because their stated ideology isn't their actual ideology. They're using this rarely seen technique called lying. They want to lie about having the moral high ground in order to do whatever they feel like, because they're evil, selfish people that don't deserve rights who should be forced to mine rare earth minerals for the rest of their lives. Now, for those of you who are smart enough to operate in reality, let me break down what's actually happening for you. A Collective Shout is staffed by ugly old women who are chasing status to feel good about themselves. They want the status of being able to say, we accomplished something, and their chosen method was nagging payment processors into doing what they already wanted to do, which was to use their completely unchecked power to exert control. This is a long-standing pattern that they've done quite a few times, arbitrarily debanking people that they disagree with. If you're not familiar with this pattern, they started doing this with WikiLeaks, and they're not going to stop until someone stops them. Like, they're going to keep doing this until someone enforces a boundary with either violence or laws. You might assume it's just going to stop at broadly objectionable stuff, but there's this thing called mission drift. The people employed by a group want to keep their salary, so they invent new things to raise a stink about. Think of it like this. Your job is to eliminate pest species like cockroaches from an area. If you successfully eliminate the cockroaches in the area, you're out of a job. You accomplish your mission, now you're fired. They don't have anything else to pay you to do. Or, instead of being financially ruined, you could expand the areas you're targeting, or include new pest species like bedbugs, or any number of other things to avoid sinking into financial ruin. So, for a group like Collective Shout, they will always find new things to complain about or new places to harass in order to maintain their own existence. Now, the payment processor monopoly, they don't have that excuse. They don't actually need to debank anyone to survive. There is no existential threat that requires them to do this. Collective Shout cannot actually threaten the payment processors in any meaningful way. They do not have any real reason to do this outside of normalizing the process of debanking. This means they already wanted to do this, and Collective Shout gave them the excuse they needed. If this turns out to be wildly unpopular, as it has, they can scapegoat Collective Shout. If there's no major pushback, then they further their goal of being an unregulated global monopoly that wields unchecked power and enables them to destroy any potential threats, both political and financial, with zero oversight or due process. They gain the ability to do whatever they want without having to actually follow any laws. And you might think I'm just doing like the slippery slope doomsaying. No. There's this thing called established practice. To summarize this legal concept, if someone did something in the past with no legal consequences, then they can keep doing it in the future. Now, it's possible to overturn this precedent, but the more of it there is, the harder it gets, and they know that. They can afford lawyers to explain this to them. That is why they are doing this. They know it gives them more power in the future. They make it into an established practice, and they can point to that in court. Each time they get away with it, it's harder for someone to stop them in the future because it's a more established practice. This isn't doomsaying, this is how the process works. But there's a few key weaknesses we can exploit to stop them. First off, the easy ones everyone's already doing, flooding them with complaints and emails and phone calls. Don't just tell them you're disappointed and will not use their services anymore, because they don't care. You don't have a choice to use one of their 3 services. What they're actually worried about is being told quite bluntly that you will make it part of your political identity to get your representatives to break them up somehow as monopolies. They're afraid of you telling them that you believe their actions are illegal, and that you will actively try and seek out opportunistic law firms to try to kick off a class action lawsuit. They're terrified of you telling them you'll forever support any regulations against them. And to do this, I'm just going to give you some places to contact, some phones to call, some emails to mail. They're going to be on stream and should be right now. On video and should be right now. And they will also be in the YouTube description so that you can just go to those places. This is the ones for Visa, Mastercard, and PayPal, who are the 3 responsible for this. And, of course, letter writing, phone calling, that's step 1. Step 2 would be to contact the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and file a complaint. The contact information for them is both in the description and on screen right now. The last thing you can do is submit a complaint detailing the issues to the Department of Justice Antitrust Division or the FTC's Antitrust Division. The information for those should be on screen right now and, again, in the description. See, I'm not a lawyer, but as far as I can tell, the payment processor monopoly broke 3 specific American laws that you'll want to include in your complaints. First, 15 U.S. Code Section 2, the text of which is currently on screen. The fact that all 3 of them chose to do this at the same time more or less means that there's an attempt to monopolize by conspiring with others, which is illegal. For all of them to act in unison like this is flat on its face conspiracy to any reasonable person. Second, 15 U.S. Code Section 14, the text of which is now also on screen. The specific violation here is that they're forcing Steam to drop games, but not forcing other distribution platforms like Epic Games Store to drop games. This means that they are preventing Steam and itch.io from using or dealing with the goods of one of their competitors. These are the US federal laws, but they also violate a California state law, Business and Professions Code 17200, the text of which is also on screen. Because what they are doing is unlawful federally, it's also unlawful at the state level in California. There's also probably European laws that are getting broken, but I don't know European law, I don't know what agency you would need to report this to, and I think the largest amount of people watching this video are American. If you're European and you want me to make a second video, please let me know in the comments, because I'd have to do a lot of research before making an extra video about that. However, if you're someone like me who has completely lost all faith in institutions, you'll probably hear this and think it's probably not enough, and I would agree. You might get them to back off and force a draw if you're lucky, but you won't be able to win. See, these all target payment processors, institutions. And here's the thing that might blow your mind. Institutions don't make decisions because they aren't actually real. See, there's people that are making these decisions. It's not some nebulous piece of legal personhood evaluating things via the neurons in its mission statement. These are conscious, deliberate acts by evil people who use things like corporate personhood and committees to diffuse responsibility and avoid personal consequences. If you actually want to enact change to get something more than a draw, something more than a reset to neutral, you need to target people, not corporations. Or, as Alinsky put it, humans hurt faster than institutions. So once you're finished writing all of those emails and blowing up phone lines and calling your congressman, what you actually want to do is figure out which humans are responsible for this. You don't necessarily need to assign all of the blame to a single person. There's a lot of people involved in decisions like this. You don't need to figure out if there's one person that bears all of the burden. The entire structure of a corporation is specifically set up to prevent the people involved from facing any consequences by diffusing responsibility throughout the whole network. And, well, if all of those people are a little bit responsible for ruining hundreds of people's lives and livelihoods, then isn't talking to any one of them equally valid? I mean, it's not like these are friends or family or countrymen that you're having a disagreement with. These are enemies trying to destroy the livelihoods of people, including me, to make a quick buck. If they're deliberately preventing personal responsibility, then collective responsibility is the only avenue they've left open, right? And a good way to find the people responsible for this is their publicly available stock filings, because they are legally required to publish those. This will get you a list of names, such as the CEO, who are involved in high-up decision-making process and have the power to reverse policies. Even if they, scrub their names from Wikipedia, you can use this to get their names anyway. Another good place to look are their shareholder meetings in the SEC's Edgar database, which is in the video description. Because shareholder meetings are legally required to have information publicly disclosed like date and location. With these two things, you can find out the who and the where. Also, let me state this clearly, this is not doxing. This is public records that anyone can access. Anyone who tries to tell you that this is doxing is lying to you and arguing in bad faith because they're afraid of what happens next. I also need to make this clear. I am not advocating for anything illegal here. I am not telling you to Luigi them. This is specifically because if you watch this video and then pull a Luigi, there is a chance that I might get hit with incitement charges, and I do not want to deal with that. I am telling you how to access this information so that you can perform legal actions with it. There are a lot of ways to persuade people in public by interacting with them face-to-face that do not break the law, and that is what I am asking you to do. And I need you to remember, the win condition is not making them back off or reverse this decision. That is a reset to neutral. You are not at advantage. They will continue to attempt this over and over and over again in the future if you just reset to neutral. The actual victory condition is making certain they never attempt this again. It is not enough to make them stop. You need to create incentive structures where they are punished for trying this, either through getting laws written that outlaw it or by normalizing public outcry and backlash for this behavior. People do what gets them rewards and avoid what gets them punished. Until there's a strong disincentive in place, they will not stop because they have no reason to. People respond to incentives.